What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to the main event, episode number 407 of the Smark Moments Smack Talk podcast. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me, as always, are my usual gang here. I've got Callum Wiggins.
Yellow.
And I've got Robert DeFelice.
Hey.
So, what we were doing here is we're going to go over some stuff. That's why it's called Going Over. If you have not ever listened to a Going Over podcast, you're probably in the majority because we don't do this all that often. We very rarely ever get the opportunity to just kind of flat out talk on Smack Talk about something that isn't really gimmicky or it isn't like a pay-per-view point or something like that. Basically, Going Over is just, let's just talk about some stuff. And there's no rhyme or reason for any specific like direction that we're going with here. We're kind of just taking our inspiration of the idea and going with it and seeing where we can go down different rabbit holes and stuff. So we might talk about some odd off-topic kind of things, and we might strictly stick to the main thing that we're going to be talking about here. And the theme for this whole thing is the future of NXT based off of this most recent premiere. If you're unfamiliar with what I mean by that, NXT is now going to be on the USA Network. It's going to be 2 hours on the USA Network live every week, every Wednesday from 8 to 10 Eastern. And this particular week was the jumping point of that. It wasn't full on exactly what we can expect, but it was the first hour on USA, the second hour on the WWE Network. They made it a point to try to make this a very important show. Some pretty interesting things happened, and we got a little bit more of a taste of what the future of NXT is going to be about. So we've watched this by now. I had done my live coverage when it happened, and we've gotten a little bit of time to sort of take in everything that they've done and process exactly our opinions and our impressions and everything. So that's where we're going to start here. I invite you to all do the same in the comment section below. If you're listening and you want to chime in about whatever your opinions are, or you want to respond back to our opinions, head on over to the YouTube channel, click that subscribe button if you haven't done that already, ring that little bell for notifications, hit the like button on the video, and tell us what you think. So let's just dive into this thing here. First impression overall, before diving into the deep side of things, what did you guys feel going out of that NXT special?
I thought it was a good show. I kind of like don't really, in terms of like the short term, I don't really see too much beyond that. Just saying that it was a good show. It didn't feel particularly like as a landmark or momentous occasion. I think they tried to make it, but it just felt like a 2-hour edition of a standard NXT show. At least from my perspective.
I would agree with that. I would also say that as a longtime fan, some of the adjustments were hard, like regular commercial intervals now that aren't just, W Shop ads, and that was an adjustment. But I thought the show overall, especially the network portion, was a very strong show and has me excited for the immediate future for NXT.
I'm surprised that you say the network version was the stronger version of that, because I watched the USA version and thought, wow, they really went all out on this. And then when the network version came, I went, oh, this is just pretty standard.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling that the first part of it was the part that they really focused on. The second part was just an episode of NXT.
Yeah.
I think the reason I felt that way is because it was more streamlined. Like I said, the commercials were a little hampering for me, and it looked a lot better on the network. I don't know if that was just me, but when I jumped over, the picture quality came in crisp. It sounded louder. It just felt like a more strong presentation. I think that might just have to do with the updates to the network recently, but it was presented stronger, and I thought there were some nice surprises there that I didn't see going into the USA portion of the show.
Well, let's start getting into a little bit some more of those different details. Now, we started the show off, and we're not just going to review it. We're going to talk about the future and all the other kind of things like that. So if anybody's like, oh, I already watched the episode, why are you talking about it? We need to dissect a lot. we started off with this promo from Triple H, and that actually transitioned into what was the live show. And I thought that that was really cool because I've never seen them actually be able to pull that off before, where they've had that weird, like, the background looked like they had already post-produced this whole vignette, and it ended up being a live thing. I don't think that WWE's ever done something like that, have they?
Not to this effect. Like, this was really strong. It really seemed like it was something already recorded, and then he pulls the curtain back, and there's the live crowd.
Was I the only one, though, that didn't hear when he said now, and his mouth just kind of said now, and there was no audio behind it?
Unless that was when they transitioned over to live, and that's why we didn't hear
It
it.
might have been. That was a little awkward, but that's what threw me off at first, because I was just like, huh, okay. And then when they did that, I was like, oh, okay, well, they're really going for something different here. But immediately after that, I started thinking to myself, the camera feels weird. And whether it was like the frame rate or that, what's it, motion flow or cinema mode or whatever it is, like 120 hertz slow-mo cinema type feel, I got that throughout the whole USA Network portion of it, and I do not like that soap opera effect. Now, I have a 4K TV, and I don't have, like, the cable box hooked up to it to be able to get 4K in all its glory and everything like that. I have one of, like, these just regular digital, kind of on the shittier end of the Xfinity side of things, type of things. So, between Raw and SmackDown, they've always looked fine, but I've never gotten that soap opera effect, and I got that here. Am I the only one who got that? Or did you guys see that too?
Maybe, like I said, there was something odd to me about the initial presentation of the show for that first hour.
Did you notice any difference, Callum?
No, I don't. I don't really pay attention to too many details like that. I'm kind of the person that watches something in 4K and watches it in HD and think that it looks exactly the same. So I couldn't tell you what. If this is something that is the case though, for people that are more keenly like invested in noticing it, it probably isn't a quote unquote WWE issue. It's a USA Network issue. And that's the cameras they use. That's the production they decide to go with. That's what we kind of have to get used to. And WWE can't really have a say in that too much.
I'm kind of hoping that maybe this was like a first time jitters type thing and that this is not how it's going to look going forward, because I'm not a fan of that compared to the other thing. I'm also like the type, and I mean, some people are going to disagree with me on this, but I don't want to see a movie in 3D unless there's a reason for it to be in 3D. So if it's something like, say, Tron Legacy, where you're in this virtual world and I want to feel a little bit more immersed in that whole environment, then I want to see it in 3D. But I have no need to see Shia LaBeouf in 3D on a Transformers movie. So give me the clearer picture that's just the standard picture mode versus something that's gimmicky. And I know practically nobody that likes that soap opera effect for anything other than potentially sports. And for the most part, only the people that I know that like that for the sports only really like it with football. So with wrestling, the maneuvers and everything that kind of goes along with that is slightly different from something like football, where a lot of the time you're spent just like looking at the field and seeing like, the referee like casually walk up and just be like, offsides, defense, first down, whatever like that. I just pissed off all the football fans that are there. We'll talk XFL eventually. Don't worry. We'll do something good. If this is where they're going forward with this, I'm not a big fan of it. And this also kind of made me feel a little bit nervous that maybe these are the type of cameras that they were also thinking of doing for SmackDown. Because we did hear that Fox was interested in having a different setup like that. And if that's the case, we're going to get 2 out of 3 of these shows now with this weird frame rate issue. It's going to be an adjustment period, and it's going to take a while for me to get used to that. Hoping that that's not the case.
What did you guys think about them changing the ramp and the stage? And I know Callum probably didn't even notice, but did you notice that, Tony? They got rid of the steel ramp and they took away a portion of the stage.
The stage did seem different, but I couldn't really quite place what it is that they had changed. So it must not have been that much of a difference that I really necessarily cared about it, but I don't remember it looking bad.
A lot of people on the fan side of things were happy that they got rid of the ramp, as they felt the steel ramp was actually hurting people, but that could be a case of, wrestlers just selling impactful moves properly.
Well, Tegan Knox, at the very least, she got injured on that. But, she's working with, she had gotten injured before that, and, So maybe that's something on the safer side. Maybe it's just an aesthetic change, or maybe it was just to sell more seats. Cram a couple more people in there.
Yeah.
We need to talk about that as part of the future of NXT, in that they need to get out of Full Sail University, and soon. They can't have a weekly television show in front of 400 people every single week, especially if AEW is going to be packing out 6,000 to 10,000 seater stadiums.
Okay, so that Omega kind of touched on that in an interview with Sportskeeda, where he's like, "You want to call us a war when we're going to be in 10,000 seat arenas and they're going to be in front of 400 people?"
Well, it's
but
not
I
even.
think they can work with it for now.
I'm just like, it's not so much about the size as it is about the
How you use
atmosphere.
Yeah, dude, go on. This is softball.
Before I was so rudely interrupted. It's about the atmosphere, because even by the second hour of the show, the crowd was really quickly dying off in terms of how loud or enthusiastic they were about everything. I just don't think this crowd... I think this crowd is oversaturated with good wrestling, that when they see NXT turn up, they just think that it needs to be extraordinary for them to really react to it, as opposed to if it's just standard matches or just typical decent wrestling that we're used to in NXT, they're just not good. They're just going to sit on their hands for the most part. I think having it tour a little bit more, you can have an episode in Full Sail every month, one episode every month in Full Sail, or 2 episodes a month, but it needs to have a new, fresh audience that is going to be invested in it, to where the crowds for the takeover shows are usually so much more amped up than the Full Sail ones.
I'm kind of working under the assumption that they're sticking with the Full Sail thing only for now, and even though they've said specifically that they have no plans on moving, everything's always changing, and I think that they want to build up a little bit more steam with NXT, and then maybe 6 months down the line, maybe a year, or whatever it is, that they're going to travel a little bit more. And right now it's safe, and they don't have to try to sell out the whole arena thing, because Raw and SmackDown are suffering. So what would be the likelihood that they'd be able to sell that out? And for that matter too, for anybody that means that means that WWE is so screwed because AEW is doing that. AEW is the new kid on the block. A year from now, are they going to sell out that quick? They're already not selling out as quick. So I think that things are going to level out a little bit differently. The NXT stuff might go on the more upswing. The AEW stuff, it's not going to die out, but it's going to not be like the super infallible, fun, amazing, all the potential in the world type of thing once people get a little bit more used to it. I think they're waiting for that, and then that way they can strike, and then they can be like, let's remove elsewhere, and we're still going to call Full Sail home, and we're still going to do all these shows here and all that, but maybe we don't do every single week there, and that'll be past the point when people are a little bit blah about it, because we are going to run them, as if I'm part of this, WWE is going to run them down. You do one show every couple of months or every couple of weeks or so, and you do all those tapings and stuff, yeah, they're going to be hot for it. You do 2 hours every single week, suddenly the people in the crowd, like Izzy, the big Bayley fan, she's not going to be so pumped when it's her 7th week in a row. You know what I mean? So I agree with you on that.
I think for now it works. I think they're trying to do like an ECW arena type vibe, and it's good for now.
Now, about that whole switch over between the USA portion of it and the network portion. This is only going to be applicable between this week and next week, because then Suits goes off the air and they don't have to worry about that, so then they can have 2 hours on there. Rob, you had said that you felt like there was a change. I felt like there was a change too. And I liked the network portion of it better as far as like the presentation behind it. But how did you feel about that, Callum? Any kind of difference?
Well, I wasn't watching on the
He
USA
watched it on the network.
Yeah, because
that's right. Yeah,
people
He's
have
not
to
in
recall the fact
America.
that I watch it after the fact because I can't watch it live. I have work the next morning, and I also don't have access to the USA Network anyway. So I watch it through the means that I watch it.
Even in that regard, though, then that would be a potential difference. Did you notice any kind of difference between the two, or did it just kind of seamlessly flow?
I mean, I can't say the first section felt like it was more amped up and had more energy to it. The only difference I felt was in the aesthetic of the actual matches and the stuff that was going on. There really wasn't anything in terms of quality of picture or anything to that regard that I could really suggest. The only thing that I noticed were matches started to get less meaningful and the crowd started to get less excited.
Well, if anybody else that can compare the two, because I haven't gone back to rewatch that on the network to see if I can pinpoint any kind of like changes in that presentation or whatever. If anybody else has anything else to say about that, drop a comment below. Tell me what you think, because very curious if I was just sort of off, or if maybe there is something to the whole camera change or whatever. I highly doubt that they would just like midway switch different cameras. So it had to be either something through the production side of things or the broadcast side of the USA Network or whatever, which that also would throw me off too, because Raw and SmackDown aren't like that. So I don't know. That's very strange.
Remember how I said Clash of Champions looked crazy, vibrant, and crisp? I got that same vibe from NXT. So maybe it is something new with how they're streaming on the network.
It could be something like that, which the network still has a lot of problems that they need to sort out. So maybe they're tweaking some settings behind the scenes, and the back end could be messing some things up and making it better, making it worse. Who knows?
So based on what you guys are talking about in terms of the transition over, you guys weren't two of the people that suffered from the switch over. Because
No,
I heard a lot of discussion about the fact that people went over to the WWE Network after the USA portion, and the network just crashed on them.
I had
no,
like a very split second hiccup, and that was it.
Yeah, like my network completely logged me out, and it definitely crashed. Where so many people, I think, tried to log in at once, almost like a WrestleMania thing. But after I logged back in, it was seamless the whole way through.
Now, did you try to log in after the USA one went off the air?
Yes.
See, I had it logged in ahead of time.
You had it ready to go. That's why you didn't experience it.
Probably why, yeah. So for anybody that's like going to try to avoid that for next week, log in midway through the USA episode or so. That's what I did. Actually, I think I might have done it before the USA one even started. Now I'm thinking about it.
You could just keep the live stream running on the network.
Yeah, I just had, because I mean, I'm in a position where I use it on my computer. It's hooked up to my TV, so obviously if people are watching it on their TV, they can't be logged into the network and watching at the same time and doing all that kind of stuff just the same. But I had that just in a tab on the background and had that muted, and once the USA one shut off, I switched my HDMI input, unmuted it, and I was pretty much fine. Just a split, like, it needed to like kind of refresh itself, and 2.5 seconds later, it was perfectly fine for me. So that is a way to get around that for anybody who has that problem. Just log in advance.
Callum, any word on where, if anywhere, NXT will be airing for you guys?
Sky, right? Isn't it Sky Sports?
Well, no, because
BT.
Sky doesn't hold. Yeah, Sky doesn't hold. Well, it currently holds the license for the WWE main shows, but that'll be moved to BT Sports soon. I haven't heard anything about NXT. But
And do you get BT Sport? I know it's behind a paywall.
No, I don't.
Oh.
But I don't. I'll lend in a little bit here and don't read too much into this or try and get me doxed or anything like that. But I don't exactly watch Raw or SmackDown through Sky either. So it's just a case of it's so much more convenient to find it on the internet. And
Fair enough.
And either way, even if I was to watch it, I usually dial it down to just YouTube clips anyway, because you can really just watch the YouTube clips and know exactly what's going on Raw or
Agreed.
SmackDown. You don't need to watch the entire show for 2 hours, however long.
Well, how else are you gonna do a little day drinking or listen to some fucking Little Lungs bullshit?
I don't think he gets those ads because he's British and they're probably smarter.
Yeah, well, yeah, we still get stupid, dumb ads, but probably not to that extent that you get it.
Well, his are actually funny, at least. Like, American ads suck.
No, our ads suck as well. They're just in that British tradition of, dour humour that makes fun of themselves. Most of the adverts basically just adverts about taking, hey, how dumb is it that we're making an advert? And then to try and sell your products because no one likes being sold to.
Instead of Little Lungs in a Great Big World, would you get Wee Lungs? Would that be like more fitting?
Maybe in Scotland.
They're all the same to an ignorant American like me. I just merged states together too while I'm at it. Really quick plug for anybody that's interested. If you are listening to the iTunes, Stitcher feeds, the audio-only kind of platform things and stuff like that, and you wish that you could be chiming in on the discussion I mentioned before, head on over to YouTube. Just a reminder. So, we're talking advertisements here. I want to talk about something that I thought was very ridiculous. 8:20 p.m. Now, of course, we're skipping parts of like the episode and stuff, but we'll backtrack. 8:20, they cut to a commercial. And it's for AEW. Why the hell, if you are WWE and or USA Network, would you advertise the All Elite Wrestling show that is going to be directly in competition with you on another network? The money that they paid for that commercial spot cannot be worth what they ended up potentially trying to do, which was to tell people, hey, in 2 weeks, don't watch the very same program you're watching right now. There is no benefit to it. If it was on a different time, I could even understand it more. But it's directly in competition for you. 8 o'clock, TNT. Why the fuck would you approve that?
So, when you got the ad, you got it coming out of NXT? Like, directly, the first commercial was a cut to AEW?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got it. It was the last commercial going in back from the break.
Or, well, it might have been.
So I thought, like, I heard wrestling and I'm thinking, oh, NXT's back on. And then I hear Cody and I'm like, well, that's funny. It's fine. I used to get ads for Lucha Underground and stuff like that during Raw. So this isn't unprecedented. It just seems funny that it's for the very show that will go opposite of NXT. And a lot of people loved it. It was a cheap pop for all the news sites. Like, oh, AEW pays for advertisements during NXT. The war continues. But I just kind of shrugged my shoulders, Well,
the thing is, like, I can understand if you're some kind of big executive over at USA and you don't really care about a lot of these things and you're not a real big wrestling fan and you're just kind of looking at that as like, all right, well, we've got ad space to sell and this wrestling company wants to advertise on a wrestling thing. Fine, go ahead and do it. But it's not advertising. If you're on Monday Night Raw and you do an ad for Impact on a Thursday afternoon or whatever, then you're like, all right, well, nobody's going to watch USA at that time. And they will take their ad money and whatever. It's literally the exact same time and an opposite network. And it's the main thing that's going to be competing with it. You don't have like a Coca-Cola ad and in the middle of the ad somebody's drinking Pepsi. It's the stupidest thing you could do in a marketing side of things. Out of all the things to advertise, that is probably the one and only thing that you should not be advertising because it hits the target audience, gives them an alternative, tells them that that is happening in 2 weeks. It's a new league and all this other kind of things that are like, well, this is new and exciting and interesting, and you might want to check it out more than NXT. I thought that was just absurd.
Well,
God.
I mean, obviously, I didn't really see the advertising, but I don't know how much sway WWE can have over it. Surely the only thing that WWE could do is buy the space themselves and advertise something of their own on it.
No, but USA stands to lose on it too.
Well, they potentially stand to lose on it, but it's I understand that sort of thing. But the only other alternatives they could do is they need someone else to buy that advertising space, and if no one else is interested or no one else is willing to pay that amount that AEW was willing to pay for it, then they have to find that. Then they might as well go because at the end of the day, it's money for them. And second, or the alternative, which I'm sure they'll do, is they will advertise during AEW on TNT.
I hope that they at least do that, and
yeah,
that they don't get like the kind of bad deal where it's like, I don't know the numbers. Let's just to keep it simple, let's just say AEW paid $100,000 for that ad, and then they go like, "Hey, we want to advertise on TNT," and they go, "All right, $300,000." You know what I mean? That's what I would do if I were TNT. You know?
Well, yeah, you would exactly do that, and it's just I don't think that's problematic. It's just a case of WWE has significantly more resources than AEW, even if AEW is the second biggest promotion in terms of like the wealth that they carry. So you should be charging more for them to do it because AEW should be commended for getting on the ground floor first. It's not like WWE couldn't have started advertising during like anything that's going on in TNT. I'm sure they do on occasion, but like it's their opportunity to do it. It's their problem for deciding, okay, we're going to be putting this thing on first to try and get the jump on AEW. So AEW went, okay, so we're going to use that time to advertise our own product. It's a competitive environment. You've got to do what you need to do to make ends meet.
Yeah, Callum knows who he's talking about. He works in advertising.
You're the one who signed off on it, aren't you? You can tell us.
I mean, I don't want to expose my sources or like the people that I work with.
You heard it first, everybody. He's Russell Boots.
Hey, yeah, there you go.
No, I'm actually Brad Shepard. So don't take that seriously. I'll be getting so much hate mail in a little while.
We know you're Billy Body. That's the reality of the whole situation. Let's start diving into the show itself, because we do want to talk about what happened on the show, because that obviously has an impact on the future. And they started off with the Fatal 4-Way #1 contenders match for a shot at Shayna Baszler's NXT Women's Championship in the future. We later clarified that would be in 2 weeks, and we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail in a little bit. It was Candice LeRae beating Bianca Belair, Io Shirai, and Mia Yim. And I had seen some criticism online of people saying that they weren't sure why they would go with this match first, and I kind of didn't think that it was all that much of a risk. They're all talented. They killed it. It was an explosive match. It had a lot of good moments in it. It wasn't like a botch fest. There wasn't a problem with it. I liked it a lot. I kind of don't see where people were critical about that, unless it's maybe just sort of like a little antiquated idea of like, you're starting with the women's match, which is like, well, why not? Like, does that not translate to you guys too? Just the same? Like, I'm so confused about that.
Well, I don't see what the criticism would be. Like, they decide this is their first impression on the USA Network, and they entrusted it to the women's wrestlers. Surely that's a mark of quality for their side of things, rather than something against them. It's like, wow, this is your opening gambit to try and get the viewers that have tuned in immediately to stick around, and you put on your women's wrestlers to perform it. And like, if people didn't stick around or numbers didn't grow off the back of this, then I don't know what people really want out of wrestling, because this kicked all kinds of ass. This was a tremendous Fatal 4-Way match.
I think I was more surprised, if anything, that they went straight into action rather than, Undisputed Era talking about how, yeah, this is NXT and we run NXT, or even somebody who we have to talk about because he wasn't on the show at all, Johnny Gargano, saying something like, yeah, NXT. I was more surprised that they opened just straight to, bam, this was Triple H for 30 seconds, here's a match. But I love the match, and for that matter, I love the move to opening with matches, as opposed to what I'm used to on Raw. It's just that I'm so used to it that I was surprised they didn't go with it.
You wanted a 15-minute promo where they set up the obvious main event that, for some reason, they didn't book until that promo happened, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there was a lot of logic infused into this episode of NXT, and I think that concerns me. I'm not used to logic in wrestling.
Yeah, we all enjoyed it. Great match. Everybody
And
looked.
hell yeah, Candice LeRae. Like, what the fucking finally? Am I right?
She's been a part of the company for a little over 2 years, I think, and she is now finally getting her first shot at the championship. She's never had a championship shot other than maybe like a house show or something like that, but they don't count.
She's had one takeover match.
It's crazy.
which she
And
lost.
yeah, but still, she won
I
this
mean,
one.
I obviously appreciate the match, and I definitely don't have anything against Candice LeRae winning. It's just there's been a few logical inconsistencies with NXT recently, with the idea of Candice LeRae just came into William Regal's office last week and said she should be in the Fatal 4-Way match, and he let her into the Fatal 4-Way match, despite the fact that she lost in the previous takeover. All of the other people in the match, Mia Yim, like she was the last person to have a title shot, and
She lost,
she
though.
yeah, she did lose, but she didn't get screwed out of it either because there wasn't interference. So realistically, she shouldn't be in this match. Belair's been on a winning streak recently, so it's fair enough she should be in it. And obviously, Io Shirai won the match at Takeover, so she should be in it. I just feel like the people involved in it, even though it made sense because of the quality of wrestler they are, they need to be more sound reasons for them to be in this match. I mean,
And
Rhea Ripley should be in this match.
That was my next point.
Yeah.
Where was Rhea Ripley?
Now, I can justify the Fatal 4-Way in my regard of being like, well, Belair lost multiple times, Shirai lost multiple times, Yim lost, and Candice LeRae came up short against Io Shirai, but she should still be kind of like hovering around that scene. But yeah, it should have been a Fatal 5-Way, and Rhea Ripley should have been involved. There's kind of no explanation of why she wasn't in that.
Well, maybe the only reason why it wouldn't be is the fact that Rhea Ripley competed on NXT UK the exact same night. And maybe they like to give the illusion that it's actually like pseudo live going on in NXT UK.
I'm under the
that's
impression
totally going to change in the future, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's definitely.
I'm under the impression that this is to set up a huge match for the October 2nd show because it's the first one going up against AEW, and then Ripley's going to get it at War Games.
Well, we also talk about the idea that the October the 2nd show, one of its marquee matches is to crown the first ever AEW Women's Champion. And they're going head to head with that with an NXT Women's Championship match.
Yeah, it makes sense, so.
Oh yeah, also it does make sense.
That's a great day for women's wrestling, and I mean, what else can you say that hasn't been said? But look at how much better it is for them now.
But obviously, it's not a. I know we'll obviously talk about title changes that happen on this show, but do you think, in order to try and attract people like beyond AEW side of things, they'll give the belt to Candice in this situation?
I actually do think that she's getting it because WWE really loves doing title changes on special episodes. And we talked about this before. Raw 25, Raw 1000. We just got the announcement of Brock Lesnar going to be facing Kofi Kingston on the SmackDown debut on Fox, which, of course, Brock Lesnar is winning that title. They're not having Kofi Kingston retain. And even on this one, which we'll talk about later, Roderick Strong wins the title. I think that October 2nd thing, it's almost like this was the premiere, but it was a soft grand opening. Kind of like what restaurants or something do, where they do the grand opening before the grand opening, whatever. And I feel like they want another title change. And that October 2nd time frame is going to be right before that whole draft. And I'm starting to feel like Shayna Baszler is moving. So if they have Candice LeRae beat Shayna Baszler, they can continue with Candice going forward. They can have her up against Io Shirai again, against Mia Yim again, against Bianca Belair again. But they've also got the option of Rhea Ripley. And Ripley is much more of a heel than she is a babyface. So we got our Shayna Baszler Rhea Ripley match. They can push that aside, and Ripley can be maybe Candice LeRae's first feud.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me.
Yeah, I don't see her getting it, but it does make sense that they're putting a very similar in terms of scrappy babyface versus dominant heel woman versus woman match. And I don't see Shayna Baszler losing it until a takeover.
And I feel like TakeOver War Games, which we have no indication right now as far as what they're going to do, which that's a whole nother discussion as well. Yeah, actually, let's talk about it. Let's rope it and mix it together here. I feel like they are holding off on trying to build towards War Games because it is 2 months away, but that they also are planning on doing some reshuffling of the decks, kind of. And I don't feel like War Games is going to be involving Shayna Baszler because not only is she potentially going to move on the draft, but I kind of think that like they're going to switch up enough stuff by now that they want War Games to be like a different feel to it. And Baszler has been the champion for a year. And if she just ends up facing Candice LeRae in a rematch or Rhea Ripley in a rematch, it doesn't seem as exciting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but at the
Like-
same time, how much are they going to start giving away on weekly programming?
Well, they should be giving everything away on weekly programming.
I guess that's true.
Again, I always come back to this argument: is that at the moment that we're not in an era of pay-per-view anymore. TV is the thing that you should be attracting more eyes to. That's the thing that's getting you the most money. That's the thing that's secured WWE like billions of dollars over the next 5 years or so for Raw and SmackDown. That's where you should be doing the more monumental things. Takeovers are great for your WWE Network audience, but that audience is already there.
That's fair.
You can kind of like grow it over time, but they've shown over the past like however long it's been around, like 5 years at this point, that they've barely got over 2 million people, even if that, subscribe to it. So if you're going to attract more people onto your weekly television shows, then that's the thing that you should be aiming for.
And that also too, if they want to get people that do more stuff with the TV shows, they're going to want people to watch more of the USA side of things on NXT, not TakeOver. And obviously they want people to watch TakeOver. It's not like they would say, don't watch one or something like that. But between the two, which one makes a little bit more sense as far as building towards the future and having a title change? Is it War Games or is it the USA thing? The USA thing, it's fickle and it's kind of the right type of manipulation, but people do look at stuff like that and they do say, wow, title changed on the USA thing. Maybe I'll watch this show because exciting things are happening. It does work.
Yeah.
So if I were in WWE shoes, I'd rather Shayna Baszler lose the title on NXT on just a regular TV show on October 2nd and have that be a focal point of what the news is talking about rather than the Riho and Nyla Rose match.
I would
TakeOver is kind of like, all right, well, people are going to watch TakeOver that are going to be dedicated to it anyway. And yeah, a title changes hands on a pay-per-view? Normal.
Yeah, and that was one final thing I was going to say. With all due respect to Shayna Baszler or Candice LeRae or Rhea Ripley or whoever's involved in the women's title match at TakeOver War Games, that's not the draw for TakeOver War Games. The War Games matches.
Yeah, 100%.
So you could literally put any two women that you wanted to in the title match, and people will still tune in because the War Games match is the one they want to see.
For that matter, too, we still don't know what the War Games match is going to be because we don't know anything about the War Games setup. And there's a chance that maybe they keep Shayna Baszler around in NXT, and whether or not she goes up to the main roster, too, that's another thing, because we've seen the Street Profits are still in NXT, and they're on Monday Night Raw. So we might even see, like, Candice and, I don't know, Bianca and Mia against Duke and Shafir and Baszler in the War Games. Like, we have no indication of what that War Games match is going to be. It could be 2 teams, it could be 3 teams, it could be teams of 3, teams of 4, all over the place with that. And
but you know, one thing we do know is that they love their history.
God, yeah. What was the thing that they had said during this? It was like for the first time ever, whatever. It was one of those types of things where I've been making the joke recently and they full on did
it. Was the Undertaker, for the first time ever, Undertaker is on SmackDown in Madison Square Garden.
No, but they did something on this NXT episode. I forget what it was. It was something like, it wasn't this specifically, but it was something like, for the first time ever, Velveteen Dream is appearing on the USA Network or something where it's just like, oh my God, like, of course it's the first time ever. You didn't do this before. Like, can you stop, doing that? I forget exactly what it was. If you remember, drop a comment below. Same old practice here. But I'm going out on a limb. I say Candice beats Shayna in 2 weeks. If we're going prediction mode, we're not doing a pay-per-view point type thing, but where are you standing on the prediction side of things?
I say Shayna keeps it.
No, I think Candice wins.
2 for a title change, 1 for staying the same. That transitioned into Sean Maluda comes out, and I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, maybe they signed Sean Maluda. That's kind of cool, because Sean Maluda has done some fun matches here and there. He was in that Evolve show, and I think that he could be a good person in the NXT side of things. And we're probably going to see more people from Evolve popping up in NXT just because they need more people. And, you put them in the loop and there's no negative to it. And Cameron Grimes comes out. And then I'm thinking, he's got new theme music. And I hate it just as much as the one he had before because I hate his whole aesthetic. I don't like that stupid hat. I don't like that vest. And I hate country music. So it's like, ugh, this is all terrible. And before I notice, the fucking match is over because he does one move and pins him. It's a complete squash of just his double stomp finisher and nothing more. And it puts Cameron Grimes over. I still don't understand why they really want to focus on him. I'm not seeing anything there that I feel like they need to really harp on, but poor Sean Maluda, and good for Cameron Grimes at least.
I was more impressed with Arturo Ruas in a losing effort than I was with Cameron Grimes in a winning effort. But I've been watching him for a while now, so he's not bringing anything new to the table. And I was not aware until the media call afterwards that Sean Maluda wasn't even signed.
No, he's been a part of the fold since the Cruiserweight Classic, and ever since then, maybe 3 times a year he'll pop up as like a enhancement talent on NXT, that kind of thing.
He's a Samoan, they wrestle.
Yeah, I didn't really have too much to say about this. Obviously, they want to push Grimes pretty strong. I just don't think that there's a high ceiling for him. Just what's his level? Is it North American champion? Potentially, he looks too big to be a cruiserweight if the cruiserweight title comes over. So
if
talk about that too,
or when it does eventually or whatever. But it's just I just don't think that he has it as to be a potential main event or drawing factor in NXT. It will just be a guy.
He is billed at 220, so that is above that, but they could always just lie, obviously.
I can see him
lie.
Yeah. I could see him eventually falling into the Kona Reeves bracket of we'll drag you out every now and again to get beaten by a babyface who's actually over.
Yeah, screw Kona Reeves.
They clearly like him. They put him in that second runner-up kind of spot for the NXT Breakout tournament and everything, but I'm not seeing it yet. I'm not ruling him out yet. It's not the type of thing where it's like, this guy's awful and they need to get fired or something like that, but I'm not seeing star power right now.
I have no question of his in-ring ability. I think he's an excellent wrestler. I just don't think he has a lot of personality behind it, or a personality that really stands out.
I take umbrage with this just because if you look at the talent that was on the network portion, Pete Dunne, Leo Rush, Oni Lorcan, why was this the match that you're like, yeah, let's put this on USA? But even still, I think I would have went with a shorter Pete Dunne match with Ruas than put this match on there.
Well, I think they went with what I've at least gathered for it. Probably it goes down in history as one of the shortest matches in NXT history.
It's just about on par with the Matt Riddle Cassius Ohno one.
Yeah. So and also they on TV they do like to push a lot of squash matches and things along that extent. I think it has a shock factor to it that you wouldn't typically get from an NXT one. So it might be something like, oh my god, Matt, we have to pay attention because the match could be over in 30 minutes or 3 seconds even. So I can understand why it was on the TV version of it.
I think if I were in their shoes, I mean, I obviously already spilled the beans about the idea that I don't really see Cameron Grimes as being like, this is our money guy to focus on or something like that. I think I would have booked a squash match to be like Dominik Dijakovic instead.
Well, that's what their match is next week, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
they're doing Keith Lee against Dijakovic again.
Those two are popping up next week. Dakota Kai is making her return next week, even though they kind of made it seem like that was going to happen this week. Which, by the way, they also flat out had said before the Street Profits were going to face the Undisputed Era for the tag team titles. Didn't do that match, so they rescinded that, which means that NXT is going to fall victim to the exact same problem that happens on Raw and SmackDown, where they announce something even like earlier in the night practically, and then they decide to change their mind. So I'm not a fan of that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I thought I had heard that they were going to defend the tag titles, but maybe they ran out of time. But again, I don't think some of these matches could have been shuffled around. I don't think you needed this Cameron Grimes match, and I think if you weren't going to provide Pete Dunne to the world for the first time on cable TV, then he could have been slotted into next week or whatever. But I don't know. First week, so we'll figure it all out.
I just kind of feel like maybe in retrospect, a little bit of hindsight, it might have worked better if they had Dijakovic beat Sean Maluda so quick, and then Keith Lee come out and kind of be like, we're gonna have our big fight in 2 weeks, and then that would have been like the setup for it. That's where I would have gone, at least. I don't know. Very quickly, let me toss out another plug here. If you're not following us on Facebook and Twitter, go ahead and do that. They're both at Smark Out Moment. I've got my own personal stuff at A Mango Tree and Tony Mango, and I've got Fanboys Anonymous as well, all over those things. If you want to check out what these two guys are doing on Twitter, there is Wigmeister14 and there is Dude Felice. So go ahead and do that. Hop on over there and do that while you're listening to us. So they promoted those kind of things, and one of the things that was like the big promotion heading up to this and kind of the main draw of the whole show was the North American title match. Roderick Strong actually defeats Velveteen Dream, wins the title, as we all kind of expected, with a little bit of help from the rest of the Undisputed Era. I will say, though, they completely got me on I wrote down 8:58 is when Velveteen Dream kicked out. Did not see that coming, and for a split second after that, I was just like, oh shit, they're not changing the title. Wow, I can't believe that they're not going to have the title change. Because what was the likelihood that they were going to do the same thing that quickly in those, 120 seconds or whatever that they had left? But they got me, and that switched around. We got a new champion, as expected. The prophecies fulfilled. All that good stuff.
It took them all year, but fuck, they got it,
Yeah.
And I loved it. I think Velveteen Dream is fantastic, even though he's reportedly not cleared to compete and was walking around gingerly. I think he is going to be one of their best assets going forward. And you guys know I come on here every time and gush about the Undisputed Era, and no difference here. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's a great match. Took a large portion of the time, but you probably expected these ones. Again, this is probably where the commercial breaks became their most apparent, because you're not typically used to seeing a match like this get broken up so much, because it was a match which would fit into any takeover show, but it was just being interrupted all the time. And so they'll need to work on that side of things, but Strong was as good as he always is. Dream is always like very flamboyant and fun to watch, even if he is still developing in ring wise. I like the fact that it took basically every member of the Undisputed Era to get the title off Dream. It makes him look strong. It gives me very strong vibes that Dream is, if he isn't healthy right now, but eventually he's going to be the one that takes the main title off of Adam Cole.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. I like that this faction functions like a unit, and it's not the Adam Cole show with like the other three guys will help out each other and they'll all help out Adam, but Adam won't ever help them. I like that even though he's the leader, he still helps them do what they need to do.
Yeah, he's a good leader. He's actually like there for the whole group and not just sucking away with a bunch of lackeys. That actually separates them from a lot of other stables that have been around in WWE for a while.
Exactly. Like, I love Triple H, but Evolution was the Triple H show where, he would never help Randy win an Intercontinental title match or anything. And I always hate that because then it becomes like, do you really need Bam Neely around in La Familia? Like,
Bam Neely. Yeah, I like this a lot. I kind of already started to do my usual thing where it's like, all right, let me update the championship prediction list and who do I think can end up taking these titles and all that kind of jumping forward. Some people, I'm looking around online at the time and people are like, oh, Velveteen Dream's going to win it back. But I don't think that's happening. I think you've got plenty of people that they can start building up. And I mean, I like to toss them out there just to see if my opinion changes and stuff. But right now, I'm thinking Keith Lee is the one that beats Roderick Strong.
I'm thinking Riddle.
Yeah, I'm going with Riddle.
Riddle, I feel like he is going to be booked higher than that. They're going to kind of skip that. But they very much could easily just be like, look, we don't want to give you the NXT title. Let's give you the North American one, see where we go. That makes sense.
Well, I'm going pretty strong in terms of, like, if I was to just look at the fact that now Undisputed Era hold all the gold and you were just to point a gun at my head and say who's going to win the next title out of all those ones, I'd say Riddle for the North American, Dream for the NXT title, and DIY for the tag titles.
I can see that. There's no strong tag team right now that would be like, my God, they got to go with this team or something. It's not like Team 3.0 is really like, blowing things out of the water right now. They can't even pick a fucking name. It's like Chase Parker, Scott Parker, Jeff Parker, Parker Martell, whatever. I don't know. Matt Martell, I think, right? Yeah. It's all over the place. It's so hard to keep track of that. And I've changed that so many friggin' times. I've changed that practically more than I have with Court Moore. Like, I can't pick a name either.
I think he settled on Malcolm.
Ugh. I gotta change that back again. Jesus. Pick a name. Stick with it, WWE. Jesus. So that was the end of the first portion of the night. We switched over to the network, and we mentioned this before. We alluded to it. Different feel to it. The fact that they didn't have the commercials made that so much easier because, let's face it, when you're watching TV, you don't want to watch it for the commercials. If you are very strange. And you should donate to the Patreon. It's so stupid. I'll talk about it more in a minute. First match that they had coming out of this was Pete Dunne defeating Arturo Huas, who you might not really know all that much if you have not paid attention to Evolve, because he's been hanging around a little bit more there. But you might recognize him as Adrian Jouj, the guy who was teaming up with Cesar Bononi, who you might not recognize because he never pops up. He's that NXT Breakout Star of the Year. He's the one that you got to watch out for. This guy 2 years ago. It still makes me laugh because it's like he's done jack shit. I don't understand it whatsoever. I fully expect, though, the fact that they pulled out Huas here, they're going to need more people. We've talked about this before. Are they going to bring people in? Are they going to merge different brands? Are they going to do more with NXT UK? All this other kind of stuff. The fact that they put Huas on this card makes me think, all right, maybe we're finally getting that stable of the three Brazilians. Maybe it's Huas and Tainara Conchi and
They dropped the Conchi, didn't they? She's just Tainara now, right?
If that's the case, I'm not surprised, but I don't remember that on the last one. But the night was not good for Huas. He is also injured. He needs x-rays because he might have broken a finger, because that's what happens when Pete Dunne's messing around with your fingers. Yeah. I like Huas, though. I've only seen him a couple times, and what I've seen of him, he seems like he's a fun, different type of guy. He's not the type of dude that I'm going to be like, oh my God, future world champion, but he's fun, I like him. And Pete Dunne's Pete Dunne, so what am I going to complain about there?
I agree. I enjoyed this match. I thought Huas really, I like his fighting style. It's different. It's unique. And Pete Dunne, as you said, is Pete Dunne, and he's great.
I appreciate the fact that Huas puts in his his like legitimate fighting background and incorporate it into his wrestling in the way that Tainara Conchi does the complete opposite with her black belt skills. So that'd be if they do manage to do that faction, that would be quite an interesting like dynamic between those two. But yeah, I thought that the match was, if not, it wasn't spectacular, but it served its purpose of getting the two guys over. Like, he doesn't take too much away in losing to Pete Dunne. I'm not a huge fan of Pete Dunne's submission victories recently. I just don't think they look impressive enough, and the crowd doesn't get into them enough. I mean, maybe they have to do it over time, and eventually it'll get over to the point where, okay, yeah, this is how Dunne ends his matches now. But I just think the bitter end is, even though it's a convoluted finisher, it's a more like impactful one that gets more of a reaction.
I still think he's too small to do that finisher. I mean, first off, he's not going to be able to pick up somebody like a Keith Lee and do it, but just the impact wise, it's weird.
I don't deny the fact that he needs an alternative to deal with the bigger guys that he fights with. I just don't know whether just like grabbing a guy by his finger and pulling him down to the ring is like as visually appealing enough to do it. But yeah. I might be proven wrong. He had a match on the Progress show that I went to, like his last match in the UK for a while, at least by his own indication, where he had a match against Cara Noir, who's a young British performer who does a Black Swan gimmick, and it was quite an interesting match. It was quite interesting because Cara Noir wrestles without boots, and so Pete Dunne decided to, instead of using the finger attack, go for the toe attack instead.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did to Ruas.
Yeah, so like that. Yeah, I do like the fact that he takes advantage of the fact that people who are stupid enough to not wear boots to the ring get their comeuppance for it. Like Rusev would have been like all out of luck like a couple of years ago when he used to wrestle without shoes on.
Watch out, Matt Riddle.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He'll be in trouble as well.
Then we started to have these other impromptu matches because they hadn't announced. We knew the Fatal 4-Way was happening. We didn't know the Cameron Grimes Sean Maluta one was, but the Pete Dunne Otaro Hiroshi one was new. And then I'm thinking to myself at this time that NXT tag title's still happening, and I'm like, all right, we're getting that match, and then we're getting the street fight. Then Xia Li comes out. I'm like, all right, cool. I like Xia Li, and she ends up defeating Aaliyah. So we got a little more showtime for the Born and Bougie is what they're calling themselves.
Yep. I
think it's like, it's kind of fun. I actually thought that Aaliyah would end up winning. I thought that they would be like, oh, let's try to put over this tag team and let's make them like some more featured heels and stuff. But Xia Li, every time I see her, I think that she's improved, and I think that she can actually be like a pretty sizable person to bank on in the future. Actually, I'm a fan.
I would agree.
I think they should put a lot of effort and attention into Xia Li just because of, and I know you shouldn't just go based on the background, but if she can really tap into that Chinese market, that's a huge avenue for WWE to get into. In terms of Aaliyah and Bourne, I just don't know. In an era now when NXT needs to be focusing on ratings and attracting new eyes to the product, I just don't think they have the quality to be on this sort of featured level. Aaliyah's improved from what she was initially, but she's improved from terrible to mediocre. And I just don't think that Vanessa Bourne obviously looks great, but I just don't think she has shown me anything to suggest that she's good enough in ring-wise.
Yeah, hopefully they've improved a little bit too. We didn't really get to see Bourne in the ring, so
I just want
maybe they got something there.
I just want more tag teams because I want the women's tag title to mean something.
Well, I just don't think it means anything if you put it on two people that aren't good.
Let's be honest. I mean, the likelihood that they're going to have that title defended on NXT anytime soon is very slim.
I just don't know what the point of them is then. Because let's face it, maybe I am being potentially too harsh about them, but neither of them is ever going to challenge for the NXT Women's title.
Oh no, they will.
Well, they're not going to win. They're never going to compete for it on a takeover or win the NXT Women's title.
I mean, it'll be the type of thing. Then this is also a little bit more of what I was thinking that Candice LeRae is going to win this, because you could very easily have Candice beat Aaliyah and Bourne just on like episodes of NXT and just kind of, keep that going.
They're sort of like, they strike me as the type of tag team that, like in the past, when they used to do those things where, so there's one guy against the tag team champions or anything along those lines, there'd be a case of Candice LeRae has to defend title against both of them and beats them pretty easily. That's the sort of level I think I would view them at the moment.
Yeah, I could see that. And then we moved on to somebody that I was also not expecting to see, Denzel Dejournette. It was like, wow, okay. I don't even remember the last time that I saw that guy. He's part of the Performance Center crew. Obviously, he's not something that is as well known as like a Tommaso Ciampa or something like that. But he was set to face Kushida, and instead Imperium comes out, and they have beat the shit out of Denzel, and they sent him back to the 90s with the Fresh Prince get up that he had going on. And they make it a point to say that, NXT UK is like 100% in on this whole NXT side of things. That's confirmation on that. They are taking charge. The ring is sacred to us, and you have to answer to the ring general, all that other kind of stuff that they normally do here, and they want to make their impression on this version of NXT. Yet Kushida comes back out, and he says that their time belongs to him now because he stole their time, and he kind of gets a couple shots in there and escapes before they can do that. And this is the most confusing part of the entire night for me, because if it would have just been the Imperium thing, then all right, you just wanted to make them look strong and whatever, and then Kushida kind of makes them look like asses. This one cruiserweight dude kind of gets the step up on 4 guys that are bigger than him, including the one of them being the champion of NXT UK, who's like the biggest guy on that whole brand. I don't know what the end game of this is. I can't see Kushida having this long feud with Imperium.
No, but it'll be good for one week of action. And Kushida can get away with that because he's Kushida and he's done big things in New Japan. So if anybody's going to out-athlete the athletes, it'd be a New Japan guy. And I really like this. I thought the beatdown itself was great. The crowd wanted Walter. And then as soon as they all did the pose and the music hit, the place went nuts. And immediately, up until the end of the night, I thought, okay, Imperium, Undisputed Era, War Games.
Possibility.
I'm pretty convinced that it's not going to be Imperium versus Undisputed Era, just due to the fact that both have the heel alignment. I know that doesn't stop them from doing it, but I don't feel that'll be the approach they take. I could have totally envisioned Walter defending the UK Championship against Kushida at the next takeover. You have Kushida go through 1 or 2 of the other Imperium members one-on-one, and then he earns an opportunity at the title. There must be a reason why Walter is there to, like, not as much to drive eyes to it as the fact that he is such a dominant force, but also it's quite clear that they'll be doing UK title matches on the NXT shows. So you need to build up certain challenges for it, and they've decided to go with Kushida for the first one.
We have 9 episodes, I think, left until we get to TakeOver, and we still don't know yet how long TakeOver is going to be, because by now they might have made the decision to make it a little bit longer. It might not be 5 matches the way that they've gotten it in the past. And there's even a chance that what we get for War Games is Adam Cole defends the title. The tag titles are defended between Fish and O'Reilly against whoever 2 people they decide to go with. And Strong defends the title, and the NXT Women's title is defended, and a War Games match. So it might actually end up being Imperium versus Kushida and 3 other people. They could do that. It'd be strange if they did that. I don't think that that's where they're going, but that could be one of their selling points. And that way NXT UK gets brought into the mix. And it might be like Imperium and British Strong Style, for instance. Just to highlight NXT UK.
I don't see them going all in like that, But I did think that the way the show ended was very strange for them to just be like, yeah, mass hysteria. And the Undisputed Era was nowhere to be found. So that kind of got me out of the mindset of, well, maybe they'll do this War Games match, because it seems like they're gonna stress Imperium as top villains.
I don't know. I guess we're going to have to find out over the next couple of weeks. So that's actually interesting, too, because the fact that we don't know the way that we normally would know. I mean, when they used to do the whole spoiler tapings and stuff, we would pretty much have an indication of where they were going the first night that they did the tapings for weeks and weeks and weeks afterward. Now it's going to be like Raw and SmackDown, where you're going to have to find out, and that's kind of a draw. So that's interesting. It's harder for me, but, whatever. Very quickly, I'm going to toss out a couple of plugs here because I didn't get a chance to do these earlier. If you want us to talk more about some different things that are going on with anything on the pro wrestling side of things, and we do not get into, we don't talk enough about NXT UK, or we, for that matter, don't talk enough about NXT, or you want us to do something in particular, then hit up the Patreon, because that is something that is going to keep the lights on. It's going to keep us motivated, keep everything heading towards that upward momentum type of thing. And if you specifically want, I don't know, a fan ounce table or something like that, then there's even a tier that you can actually request a sponsored segment. So do that if you're interested. Same kind of thing that we recently got with Guest 5, who had sponsored something on the Fanboys Anonymous side of things, where we did the Batman versus Superman fan tracks. So check that out if you were interested in Batman versus Superman, Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And if you don't know what Fanboys Anonymous is, that's the movie review website that I've got for TV shows and for comic books and video games and anything that's not on the wrestling side. Got the merch shops and the Patreon and all the same type of stuff that's happening over on Smark Out Moment over on Fanboys Anonymous. So check that stuff out when you get a chance to. And also check out the review that I put up for Ad Astra. Watched that movie last night. Generally speaking, good movie. Merchandise shops, I did just mention that, but I didn't mention it earlier. If you want something on parodies of WWE material, I'm trying to figure out some new NXT shirts. I know that they just put up a bunch of new NXT shirts that are just like, here's the Jordan Miles logo and whatever. I can't do that, but I can try to figure out parodies and jokes and stuff. So if you have any ideas in mind that you'd like to see, send them my way. I'll put it up on TeePublic and Redbubble for Fanboys Anonymous, Smark Out Moment, and for A Mango Tees. Look at that. A bunch of plugs out of the way.
While we're at the new t-shirts and the new logos, what do you think of their new FTMF hashtag catchphrase that they're using?
I do not like it at all.
It took me a while to get what they were saying, and I guess it's follow that motherfucker.
It is, but they're referring to it as tongue-in-cheek of follow that my friends, which is like that whole, instead of like, I've had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane, it's like, I've had it with these mother flipping snakes on this Monday to Friday plane, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Follow that motherfuckers. I don't know. I don't like the wrestling war when it becomes like a dick measuring contest like that. I know some people do like it, but to me it's like, just give me the better product and I'll watch it. I don't need you to stroke your own ego.
I agree.
Feel one way or another about it, Kellen?
I'm not particularly, but I would stress in terms of the Redbubble stuff that I'm pretty certain that the t-shirts that we produce are far more interesting and well thought out than the latest batch of NXT t-shirts on the WWE shop, which are essentially a logo on a black t-shirt.
That is true.
That's
I think their
so
shirt
fucking lazy.
sales, because their shirt sales have never been more down from this last quarterly report that they announced. That shirt sales were way down.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would have thought that maybe they do something about it to make them like worth buying.
Interesting.
Because it is essentially it's the same thing, just with a different logo on each time. They don't look any different or feel any different. Like, I've stopped. Like, I went through a little kick of like buying shirts on there from people that I liked, but then I just realised, yeah, these are all the same shirt, just with a different print on them in the front of them. It's just there's nothing connecting me to them. Just so lazy. At least our ones have a bit of humour to it, so you can occasionally just like look down and say, "Ah, that's quite funny," and then you move on with your life.
I still think that it's a shame that more people haven't bought the ones that say small package and point downward. I still think that's one of my favorite ones, and it's like, laugh at yourself. Come on. Let's move on here. Cruiserweight Championship #1 contenders match. This was impromptu, and that goes in so many different directions here. But it's just generally speaking, this is a very quick rundown of what happened before we start going like all over the place here. Lio Rush returned and defeated Oni Lorcan to get a title shot in the future. And man, the amount of things to unpack here. First being just, we know now that the cruiserweights are on there. They still have not said for sure that 205 Live is going under, but we can really look at the writing on the wall. Lio Rush is back. Lio Rush might be a babyface. It's like, what? All this stuff is happening all at one time. I think that we've all kind of said what we need to say about the 205 Live situation, though, in the past. But maybe there's some other elements to it. Is there anything else that you guys feel like we should touch on that we haven't already said?
All the way around with this whole situation, how to turn negatives into positives by Paul Levesque. This was the best thing that
New
could.
TED Talk.
This was the best thing that could have happened for 205 Live. It was the best thing that could have happened for Leo. I mean, this worked. Lio Rush is a babyface. Mauro Ranallo put him over as a mental health advocate, actually, and praised him for, speaking out about his issues and everything that he was going through personally. So I think this was nothing but a positive.
I would have thought you'd appreciate this, Tony, as a fan of merging.
Yeah.
That they're going to be essentially eliminating 1 hour of television a week that we don't really need at this point in time because it doesn't accomplish anything, and just feeding it into the 2 hours that NXT now have. So
it all depends on how they execute it. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm also not super like, wow, this is amazing, and I know that it's going to work out perfectly, and everybody gets an advantage.
Well, I think it's just evident with the way that 205 Live happened that the cruiserweight title and the people that are competing for it aren't strong enough to lead a brand on its own. So folded into another brand in order to like get a bit more eyes onto it could actually work, and especially performing in front of a more, I guess, rabid NXT crowd. Because even though I've talked about how I think the Full Sail crowd does die out a little bit too easily over time, and it definitely will if they expose it over several weeks, they're there to watch wrestling, whereas the people that watch 205 Live are there to watch SmackDown. Then they're not there to watch. Then which you can infer as much as it is, because like it's the idea that just people that are the only people that are watching 205 Live are the people that are too lazy to get out of their seats after SmackDown's over. So,
I mean, like, but what else can you say? But what else can you say? Callum's right, and this is perfect. I loved it.
205 Live has some of the best matches out there. The people that are involved are super talented, but that's the fact of the matter is people don't care. And that's not a matter of that they're all a bunch of failures. It's I blame more than anything it's on WWE, because they never promote 205 Live.
Oh, it's on the presentation. It's in the presentation. It's in the promotion of the brand. It's in every aspect of it. I think it's also due to the fact that unfortunately the cruiserweight style doesn't really exist in its own over anymore, because the main eventers all do a cruiserweight style.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even have that. That was the thing that really set it apart in WCW, was the fact that they were wrestling a completely different style from what was going on in the main event. Whereas nowadays everyone pretty much wrestles a pretty similar style to each other.
Everyone does a fucking suicide dive.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
if there was ever a brand that could actually utilize the corny term of X Division and no limits and all that, it would be NXT, because you guys are right. Cruiserweight is somewhat of a dated term, because I think Buddy Murphy was announced at 205, And as soon as he moved up, they're like, yeah, he's 230 pounds. He's 6 feet tall. It's like, okay. And same thing here. The cruiserweight division is great, but if Kushida and Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish are all cruiserweights, then why wouldn't this be the main title on NXT? You know, it's a weird thing.
Mark my words, though. I bet you it won't take more than a couple months for people to be like, how come 205 Live went away? Oh, well, the cruiserweights are so great. They should have their own show, whatever. And it'll be like, because you didn't watch it, motherfuckers, you know?
Bring back Talking Smack as well.
It's the same type of shit that we see all the time. That's why I've been even reading people going like, oh, Kofi Kingston's the worst champion that we've seen. And it's like, you fucking wanted it. You, as soon as something happens that you want, you stop caring about it. This is why WWE stops listening to these types of fans.
No, they're like children. They really are. It's like, I
want to play with that toy until I have it, and then now that you have that other toy, that's the one I want to play with.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's like we have short attention spans, not just wrestling fans, but as a society in general. And we're only there for the Kofi Kingston for the moment of him winning the title. Everything else after that was just filling the void. Like how quickly they like fell off the Daniel Bryan bandwagon after he won the title at WrestleMania 30.
Doesn't that mean that Brock Lesnar should just always be champion? Like,
really... your wish is their command, essentially.
Don't put that out there in the atmosphere. They're gonna grab it up.
But really, like the way people complain about getting what they wanted, like with the women. Oh, why do we always have to hear about women's wrestling? Why can't they go back to bra? You know how many comments I see daily that are like, why can't they just go back to bra and panties matches? It's like, because it's not 2002, you fucking idiots. Like, stop.
Tangentially, this leads into a problem that NXT is going to face in terms of overexposure that they've never had before. In the sense that, because a lot of that problem based around like people turning on people is due to overexposure. They now have 2 hours to fill, which means more people are going to have to appear on every single week of television, which is something that they never had because it was an hour. You could usually only get fit 3 or 4 matches at most onto that time, and it meant they had to rotate people in and out of the show. I hope they still do that to an extent, because they've definitely got enough people to do that. But you kind of feel like certain people, groups like the Undisputed Era, like Velveteen Dream, like Johnny Gargano, like real cream of the crop in NXT, are going to be on every week, and they're going to lose their shine a little bit because of that.
Well, I will say that we can't judge anything 100% based off of this episode, because this episode's an oddity, and for that matter, next week's going to be weird, and the week after that's going to be weird. It's going to take a little bit of time for them to get into a rhythm, but for the most part, I felt a little bit more confident about that after watching this episode than I was leading into it, because I was kind of working under this fear that they would fall victim to the Undisputed Era, Johnny Gargano, Matt Riddle. Like, we only have a couple people here that we would really depend on, and that they would follow suit from Raw and SmackDown and everything, where it's like, all right, the Undisputed Era starts the show, and then later on we're going to have the Undisputed Era fight in the North American title match, and the Undisputed Era is going to fight in the tag title match. It didn't happen. And Johnny Gargano is going to end the show, and let's, the second hour, show you clips of the beginning thing that's this and whatever, and be like, okay, well, if you boil it down, the 2 hours have been basically the same couple people. But they added the Pete Dunne match, they added the Xia Li match, they did the whole Kushida thing with Imperium and all that, and at that point I was just like, okay, they're actually like utilizing more people than I thought that they would, and they do have more people when you start thinking of all the cruiserweights go over. And for anybody who didn't watch 205 Live, Brian Kendrick turned heel, and they kind of like are starting to shift some things around a little bit there. You move all the cruiserweights over, you take all the NXT UK people and make them potentially in the mix. You take all the Performance Center people and you put them in there, and the NXT group of people. I think that they've got enough people now that maybe they aren't going to fall victim to that as much. I liked that they did the Leo Rush and Oney Lorcan thing instead of doing what I thought that they were going to do, which was fill a lot of time with promos. And at some point down the line, whether it's next week or 3 weeks from now or 5 weeks from now, they're going to get some kind of a note about we can't just do matches. We have to do these promos, and I don't want them to get into the rut that SmackDown and Raw are in. But we had one promo segment, essentially. The Kushida one. That's okay. If you have 2 hours and you do one promo segment, I'm cool with that. You follow it up with Lio Rush against Oni Lorcan, and the crowd is interested because Lio Rush is making this return, and that's all unexpected, which, shit, that's another topic. In this past week alone, we got 3 people that were pretty much guaranteed to leave WWE that made their return. Rusev, and Luke Harper, and Lio Rush.
And
crazy.
And you got AOP resurfacing.
Yeah.
I like it.
Just,
It
how
just
you
goes to
feeling
show.
About... Go ahead.
I was going to say, it just goes to show what not being overexposed does to your career, like how much people appreciate it when you come back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
almost
Luke
like
Harper is doing more than he had in a long time. Lio Rush is now going from the lackey that gets beaten up next to Bobby Lashley to he might win the Cruiserweight Championship.
It's almost like WWE would benefit from some kind of off-season or rotary policy.
That's just crazy talk.
But in terms of Lio Rush, I mean, it baffles my mind that you can have somebody this talented on your roster and not use him for as long as they did. I know he obviously has. I know that even if things have changed a bit, they still have the size component of pushing people on the main roster. But he definitely could have featured more on 205 Live at the very least. And he's such an impressive athlete. He does stuff in the ring that a lot of people do, but with the explosiveness that not many people can pull off. I thought he was excellent in this match, and Lorcan is a great person to go against because he's one of the bigger, taller, more physically imposing members of the 205 Live roster. So it makes him look very resilient, how he managed to fight through all the pain and get the victory in the end. Wow, I've stunned you into silence. That's great.
I mean, NXT, like I said when we started this discussion, I think this was turning a lot of negatives into nothing but positives.
Where are you guys feeling on the heel and face side of Lio Rush? Because if anybody follows Smark, one of the most popular things this past 2 years for some reason or other has been the heel and face turn list. And every day that there's a show, there's multiple comments from everybody who, anytime that there's the slightest bit of like a direction towards one way or another, people are like, is that a heel turn? Is that a face turn? Whatever. And I got people that are asking, well, is Lio Rush a babyface now? And I was like, I didn't get that feel, but I also kind of felt like he wasn't a heel either.
I was surprised that you didn't change it because he's 100% a babyface.
See, I didn't feel one way or the other, and I kind of just said, I'm going to hold off on that and see what happens when he cuts a promo.
Rush is a... Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, yeah.
I'll go.
I'd say that Lio Rush is a bit of a conundrum in the fact that his in-ring style and his look is very babyface, but his promo ability screams heel. So I think he could pull off either one of them, but he needs to be... It's weird because you don't want to limit his charisma that much, but every time I've heard him on the microphone, he just strikes me as, yeah, this guy is a bit of an arrogant, he knows how good he is type personality. And I don't know how that will really translate over to him being a babyface.
Every time I hear that, though, I just think Michaels, and Michaels worked out as a babyface.
Yeah, he was a dick, though, as well.
But he worked out as a face for a brief period of time. And right now, Lio Rush is 100% a babyface. I don't know if you guys were paying attention to the commentary, but Mauro Ranallo put him way over as... Oh, as an advocate for mental health, I applaud Lio Rush for not staying silent and not suffering in silence. He's done great things in making, rap music as of late, and now he's back to, take control of his wrestling career. So I think he's fully a babyface.
I know, it was quite clear from both the commentary and the presentation of the match where he got locked in those submissions multiple times and managed to fight his way out all the time, that he's clearly a babyface now. I just don't know how effective that will be, knowing how good of a heel that he's been in the past.
There you go, Tony. Change it right now.
And he is going up against Cruiser Gulak, and Gulak's 100% a heel, so, I mean, that positions him more in a babyface light, but, Yeah, I don't know how Leah Rush's babyface will end up being going forward, but
It'll
I'm up
work
for
for
trying.
now.
Yeah, could be the best thing for him, and good match too. So nothing to complain about there. But I will complain about this: the street fight between Matt Riddle and Killian Dane. I felt like that was a weak way to end the show, and I know some people really love the roster brawls and it's chaos and we're gonna see you next time, whatever. I thought that they did a piss poor job at this. I did not like this match. I didn't think that it was impactful enough. I didn't think that the brawl made sense because there's no clear division of what the sides are. It was just sort of one of those things like in movies when you see two people talking at a bar and one person bumps into somebody and they're like a biker gang or something. And then immediately everybody in the bar starts punching each other. And it's like, you had nothing to do with this. Why are you over at the dartboard punching the guy next to you when people halfway across the room bumped into each other? Like, why is everybody fighting? What the hell happened? I do not think that this was executed well. I think it was cheap for them to not have to do the street fight, to push it off for another time. It didn't make me feel any more positive about Killian Dane or Matt Riddle. I didn't like this at all. This was my least favorite part of the whole thing, and it was supposed to be the big thing. Well, other than the North American title.
I initially thought, oh shit, is Killian Dane joining Imperium? He's a UK guy. And then I blinked and everybody was fighting. It was like the cheap end of Raw segment at the Raw before the Rumble, where suddenly it's like everybody in the roster wants to get in the ring all of a sudden. And
and throw people over the top rope.
Yeah. I don't know. It was weird, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because it did feel special, you know?
It was definitely different. You don't really see this happen too much in NXT, which is a good thing. And it got the crowd into it, which was just a different way of ending it than they usually would do. But I fundamentally agree with Tony in the sense that I thought it was a poor, lazy way to end the show. I think I was actually quite looking forward to the Riddle and Dane match in the sense that it's a street fight. We've seen a lot of good wrestling, but this is going to be different because it's going to be two guys beating the shit out of each other and using weapons, and so it's going to give a completely different dynamic to what we've seen previously. But then when it just breaks down immediately and they just start randomly interfering with people behind the scenes and they start getting involved, and it just leads to a brawl with no real direction, or it wasn't there to promote war games or anything to that extent. It was just, if you know what it felt like to me, it felt like, remember when Impact moved to a different network at one point and they started it with everyone on a heel bus and everyone on a babyface bus? Maybe
No, but that sounds absolutely freaking ridiculous.
So Impact. I don't know what.
So everyone was traveling to, I can't remember it exactly, but everyone was traveling to the show, and all the babyfaces in one bus, all heels on the other bus, and they all just got off in the same place, and they stared each other out, and then just started beating the shit out of each other for no reason other than the fact that, oh, one of us is babyface and one of us is heel, so we'll just start fighting. And they just did for the first 10 minutes of the show, it was just a giant brawl all around the arena and backstage and stuff like that.
That sounds so fucking stupid.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking, but it kind of feels
Peter
like that.
Griffin and the chicken. What the fuck? What are we doing?
Yeah.
At that point, make it so cartoony that the buses turn like the ones from Cars or something, and they're it's like, oh, I'm the heel bus, and I'm gonna run over the face. But
yeah, so it just felt like that. It's like, oh, it's the end of a big night in NXT. Let's just end it with a giant brawl because nothing really matters and nothing's really settled. Riddle and Dane are going to fight again, which means this feud must continue. And I'm sure they'll eventually have a really good match with each other. Why couldn't it have been tonight?
Why couldn't it have been 7 weeks ago when they started this feud or whatever it was? It's like, this has been going on since before the last takeover.
Maybe I think they just want to keep Riddle in a holding pattern right now because they want to do stuff with other people until he gets a chance to fight for a title.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is the sort of thing. It's not like this is what you get in all wrestling promotions. It's not like, I don't want to say it in the way of like, oh, this bashing NXT or bashing the WWE way of doing things. There are some people that at this point in time aren't in your title plans and you need to find, but they're too big of a deal that you can't have them doing nothing. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this is the most the most beneficial way that Riddle could be spending his time, or at least the most entertaining for the fans. But it's getting Dane back into the fold. It's at least giving them something to do. So I won't complain too much about it.
I hate it when wrestling philosophy is, we're going to tell you to wait, but we guarantee we're going to do this. And when it happens, we're going to tell you to wait, but just wait because it's going to be great. And then they do it again. And then it's, I got you. You got to wait a little longer because it never ends up panning out to be worth the wait. And now that they're going to do this next week or 2 weeks from now or whatever, I already don't care from before that they were doing this, but at least then it was like, okay, well, they're going to round this out on the main USA debut and the street fight. That could be interesting. That could be fun. Now that you've said hold off a little longer, it makes me think either you are too lazy to do more of your job and I'm annoyed at you, or you purposely are trying to make me annoyed by waiting, because impatience is not something that you want to instill in people. The whole like, you should be upset that you didn't get to see this and you know, anxious to see it again. And what they did show me didn't make me go, my God, I can't wait to see what they do the next time, because it was all just like, okay, they're punching each other a couple times. This could have very easily just been not a match that was announced and that those two just had a brawl. And it could have been, you know what it could have been? If they wanted to do this brawl thing, they could have done a lot of different things. I still think that a brawl would have been a stupid way to end it, but maybe they do Killian Dane versus somebody else, or Matt Riddle versus somebody else. Even that makes more sense than that. Let's just say Kona Reeves. Fuck it, who cares? Matt Riddle versus Kona Reeves, and Killian Dane comes out and they start a fight. And then you can say, all right, you know what? In 2 weeks, they are finally just going to have to say, screw it, we're doing a street fight. You don't do that leading up to that point and then say, okay, well, now that we started to try to do the street fight, it was too crazy, and now we're going to have to do another one. No, the point of a street fight is that should be crazy. Let them fight. Now, the only way to get around it is to do a cage, or to do a lumberjack match or something. And that's not as interesting, and they've done the cages 1,000 times, and we got War Games coming up. So it's like, why repeat the same thing again? I didn't like that at all. I thought that was the one big misstep that they did here, and whoever decided that was the way to go, I hope that they don't have the decision-making skills in the future to do the rest of the future finishes, because, yeah, that soured me entirely on the whole thing. I'm like, loving this, I'm liking this is great, this is one, and then I'm like, that's how it fucking ends? Really? Come on. I would have had more fun with this ending with the cruiserweight match and it just ending early. You know?
Well, here's my issue with this. It ended early. It ended at 9:50. Meanwhile, there was a whole segment where William Regal's like, yeah, and this ain't happening next week, and this time the winner will face Adam Cole for the title. And then Triple H had a really cool moment with the NXT audience, which I think would have been a really cool send-off for the live show.
Yeah. Why not add that on there? They have the time. It's the network.
And by the way, they were on the network. I didn't understand why this show ended 10 minutes early when they're on their own network.
It's not like you've got advertisers that you have to throw in, you know, your KFC ad or something.
I think it's something they tend to do with the network to try and throw people off the scent with the fact that the show's going to end slightly early. Because let's put it this way: if the show had been going 57 minutes and then Killian Dane and Matt Riddle come out for their match, like 57 minutes into the hour or whatever, you know that, okay, this is going to be a s'mores and end in a couple of seconds. Whereas if it ends 10 minutes early, it's like, okay, so they had a match scheduled to go from here until the end of the hour, but it got fucked up because everyone interfered and we lost complete control of it, and so we had to just end the show. It's not an excuse for it, but at least makes it feel like they're trying to add a bit of reality to it.
I just imagine that being like, you blocked off the time for like a football game, and it ends up being a quick one, and it's like, all right, we're in the fourth quarter, and we didn't think it was going to be this fast, but we blocked off all that time, and, you know what, screw it, we're just gonna go to infomercials in the meantime instead of being like, let's have some post game analysis or something. Like it's very odd that they would do something afterward and not air that, unless they were just kind of like, for some reason we really want this to be like the YouTube thing, and I don't know anybody that's really checking all that out. But this was weird. Didn't like that, and hopefully that's not the way that they go in the future. But how are you feeling about the future of NXT? Is there anything that you think, looking back, wrapping this all up, are glaring, obvious problems that we need to address, or things that are like, wow, this is such a step up that it's so amazing?
I think it wasn't a step up for regular fans of the product, but when watching it on USA, watching the women's match, I was like, yeah, this is action that I don't even think you can compare to a Raw or SmackDown, because even though those matches are great, they become so formulaic with Michael Cole in the background going, yeah, but don't forget, you've got Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman doing a contract signing tonight, that this being so action-focused and fast-paced and all that, I think it was great for USA viewers. I'm not worried about the future just yet, but I do think that eventually they're going to need to move out of Full Sail, and that is going to hurt the atmosphere, because then people will already start to go, man, remember when it was the real NXT and it was Full Sail and it was just on the network and they didn't over corporate it, and people are always going to complain. So that's something the brand has to look forward to. I don't know if I'm thinking this is going to be better or worse than AEW, but I think AEW right now has a lot to live up to, because yeah, they've got a few bigger stars in terms of Jericho and Moxley and Cody, but it's not like, wow, their roster really trumps the NXT roster.
I think that's really funny too, by the way, that it's like, oh, it's not a war. We're not up against developmental people, and it's like, the developmental people have been having better matches. Yeah. Like, I'll give me that fatal 4-way from the women on NXT over any match in the women's division that I've seen in AEW so far. I guarantee you, Candice LeRae versus Shayna Baszler is going to be better than Riho versus Nyla Rose.
Given the players, I might agree with you there.
How you feeling about NXT, Callum? What's NXT for NXT? What's next?
I don't really see too much difference in terms of the quality of the shows. I don't really have too many fears about that kind of thing. I think when Triple H says that Vince McMahon's not going to get his hands on it, for the most part, I think he's being accurate with that, at least in the short term, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. The biggest issue for me is they need to get out of Full Sail, and I'm assuming they will do that within, I think probably by the turn of the year, they'll be spreading their legs and going to different locations, even if it's, I don't think they'll try and...
Spreading their wings.
I feel I got confused between stretching their legs and spreading their wings.
Yep, stretching their legs, spreading their wings, not spreading their legs.
Well, that might be the only way to stop AEW taking their advertising time.
Oh God, great!
Yeah,
we're getting fucked here.
But I think that's probably the main thing they need to address between now and like the next few months going forward. Other than that, as long as the show maintains its in-ring standard of quality, then AEW does have competition to deal with. The fact that they managed to get 1.2 million around about that mark for the first show, I think that's pretty impressive for a completely new entity, which was previously only existing in the WWE network. Obviously, they promoted the hell out of it, but I think that's a good starting base. The most interesting thing will be not so much the first on October 2nd, what the numbers are going to be, because I assume because AEW is new and fresh, it's going to completely not blow NXT's numbers out of the water, but it's definitely going to be more than NXT's numbers. But it'll be what happens 4, 5, 6 weeks after that, how the numbers compare at that point. And that'll be
when both brands aren't sitting there going, let's put everything out there.
Yeah, that'll be the true indication of which one's really standing out the most. The main thing that AEW has to try and do is try and give a completely different presentation to what WWE is putting on. Because NXT is different from Raw and SmackDown, or at least from this side of things, it seems to be more action heavy, which I'm definitely in favour of. It needs to be, in some way, a differentiator from Raw and SmackDown. And AEW needs to be be different than both of those side of things in order to really try and capture the imagination of people that both like new fans and the lapsed fans that have gotten sick and tired of the way WWE do things. Maybe NXT can be an avenue for that fan as well. Only time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, we're going to have to revisit this in the future at some point to kind of see where the whole debut fits on, like, setting a precedent for different things, and whether it's something like, is Candice LeRae going to win that title, or is Lio Rush going to win that title? Is 205 Live officially dead, or is it just going to be kind of swept under the rug a little bit? Is there going to be big changes to the presentation, the cameras? Do they look different even next week, or when they switch over to full-time USA Network? There's a lot of things that are in transition right now, and while we're in that flux period, we're not too sure where the future is going to go. But I think that as long as NXT stays basically the way that it's been, and for the most part, this debut had its hiccups here and there for the end and a couple other things, but it still felt like NXT to me. So I'm looking forward to it. I gotta pick between the two. I gotta pick NXT or AEW. I'm prioritizing NXT. And I will be watching AEW at some point after that, but they didn't botch this. So it's not like, oh god, NXT on USA is run by Vince McMahon and it's running into the same problems and now I could just watch it afterward and whatever. I'm still feeling confident about NXT, so I think they're off to a good start. And I want to know what everybody else has to say that has been listening to this. Drop your comments below. Tell us what you think. If we didn't talk about something that you were really hoping that we would, then tell us, and I'll try to leave a comment or something like that. And obviously, over the next bunch of weeks, we will have to talk about some things that happen that are important, or loop that into pay-per-view discussion, or if we get the time to do any of the things on the side, or if you donate to the Patreon and you want to do an extra podcast that are diving in more into this or anything like that, then keep all that in mind, everybody. But I've done all my plugs. Anything else you guys want to toss out there, Callum?
Well, in terms of extra podcasts, the one that will be coming up soon on the Smark Moment channel will be 2001 A Wrestling Odyssey for our September episode, where we'll be going back in time to the year 2001, as we always do. This time talking about all the events that took place in September, including the famous SmackDown post 9/11 and Unforgiven 2001. We'll be doing like reviews of both of those shows. You can also check out all the weekly articles on smarkmoment.com, including the power rankings, which are the ones that I write. And follow me on Twitter at Meister14, as we spoke about before.
And
Rob?
for me, you can check out Dude Felice on Twitter, as Tony mentioned earlier. I also participate in the 2001 Wrestling Odyssey. September 1 should be coming up very soon. I will not have a choice in NXT versus AEW because I will be covering NXT live for WrestleZone. So I'll be there on Wednesday nights and the preceding Thursday and Friday. And I will also be doing Fightful.com during the weekend. So check out all those fun sites. Check out everything Tony's got going on at Bleacher Report, eWrestling News, and all that good stuff. And yeah, that's it for me.
And that's going to do us in for this whole edition. So thank you for listening to this, everybody. We will see you in the next couple of episodes, which the next thing is going to be the hot tags. And then following that, we're going to do the mailbag. So send in those mailbag questions if you have not done that already. And that way we have as much time as we possibly can to answer as many of these questions. The more time you give us to prep, the more that we can actually take on. And then following that week, we will be getting into the first of 1,000 other different events because it just never ends. And that'll be, before you know it, the whole October switch where SmackDown goes over to Friday nights and AEW is popping up and Hell in a Cell's happening. And then we're getting into the draft, and then we're getting into all the other kind of things that go along with that. So It's never going to end, everybody. And the ball's just going to keep rolling faster and faster. So hopefully you can catch it and you can catch all the other things that we have going on. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.